Okay, so first, to my top corner, we have Iris Compiet. Many of you know Iris from her amazing work with Fairies of the Fault Lines, also the Labyrinth art books and Dark Crystal art books. I believe the Labyrinth art book is coming out next year.
Yep, June 2022.
Amazing, can't wait for that.
Me
And then
neither.
we have Danielle Pioli. Danielle is an amazing illustrator from joining us from Brazil. Fun fact, she's also a certified hypnotist. So that's very interesting. And many other things that that really connect with me every time we speak is always talking about the mind and all this stuff. So welcome, Danielle. And then we have Yangtian Li, amazing illustrator, concept artist, worked on some really cool video games like there's Call of Duty, Black Ops, but now she's doing something completely different with Palea, right? Palea, okay, great. Palea with Singularity 6 Studios. And then we have Maureen Fan, who will be joining us. She's the CEO of Baobab. And also next to that, we have Sparth, art director of Halo. Also credits to his name. There's a million, but I'll just say a couple. Prince of Egypt, Prince of Persia, I should say, and Assassin's Creed. And then we have David Levy, worked on a million things with a million people, namely some people like Ridley Scott, my goodness. Currently CEO of Pitch Dev Studios, which congratulations, you recently had one of your first projects come out, Finch, with Tom Hanks. Hey, David.
Hi. Thanks for having me.
All right. Well, today's panel is all about mental health and dealing with all these mental challenges, especially during the pandemic of all things. Maybe I'll just start it off with something just off the top of my mind, which is recently I exchanged Sparth actually gave me a bunch of really good books to read. I noticed like 5 of them had to do with jogging, running. I only downloaded one of the running ones, I want to make sure I could get through that. But maybe we could start off with, if anybody is doing anything differently, like physically, like exercising, or something like that that's helped. Any experiences? Maybe Sparth, since you're the one that suggested those books, you could start off.
Oh, sure. Well, basically, I think we could just say it this way. As artists, we never really have the time to just dedicate to so much art, and we just always we're going to try to maximize the amount of time at our table. And very often we don't realize that what's going on is that the more we dedicate time to art, the less time we have on other things on the side. And we are all persuaded and convinced that the more we put and the more it's going to help us, which is kind of wrong. What's happening is that when you counterbalance with a lot of different things, you become a better artist. And it takes time. I mean, seriously, I've never been as, again, I've extended discussions also with David about this, where I never feel I've been as fit as now, because all my life I've been so much dedicated as an artist that I have been tending to forget about everything else when it comes to life balance, when it comes to health, when it comes to reading, when it comes to making sure that my body is going to be ready for the challenge of walking a lot, or just having many other activities in life that are going to be super valuable for my art too. It's like a very strong mental interaction that happens that we tend to forget. And it's a bit of a bummer, because it's literally at 46 years old that I'm realizing that this is just such a vital balance to obtain.
Yeah, before I would go on all these trips and stuff, and part of the trips is making sure everybody has fun. And a lot of times that deals with alcohol or partying and things that may not be as healthy for us physically. And now since the pandemic, I haven't drank for months and things like that. And I actually found it a lot easier to be physically healthier. I don't know if anybody has had that kind of effect in their lives.
No, I wish I could be exercising more, but I have physical disabilities that prevent me from going running. I did take I took on a personal coach because I hate exercise. Like there's every fiber of my being hates it because it hurts me physically everything I do. So that's an extra thing that keeps me from going. But having a coach who is telling me how to do things easily or more, just certain things has helped me lots. And I still hate it, but it doesn't, it's easier. But with the pandemic and gyms being closed, and I love swimming, for instance, because that's less resistance, but everything was closed. So it was very difficult for me personally to find something that I could do because I couldn't go running. But I bought a VR glasses. I bought an Oculus, and I love playing Beat Saber or doing boxing or whatever. And it's a game, and I'm actually exercising somewhat. I'm working up a sweat, so that has been really helpful for me. So as far as exercise goes, find what really is enjoyable for you. If you hate exercising, it's difficult to go out and do it actually.
That's funny. I love the tip about the Oculus, because it does, like, you can definitely work up a sweat.
Yeah, I actually bought it to go on Google Maps and do Google Street View and go on holiday with my goggles on and just go to Scotland and, do that and feel like I'm on holiday. And it's actually fun to just go through the streets of, Venice and stuff like that. And it's just, you have to do something.
Now, before we go on any further, I want to introduce, of course, my co-host, the amazing, the incredible Maureen Fan, CEO, co-founder founder of Baobab, I should say, as well as 6-time Emmy, Annie award-winning. Her studio is incredible. It's right on the forefront of, I don't know if you still do VR, since we're on the topic. Oh, okay.
We do. We still do VR. We do everything.
So I'm sure that's not stressful. It's kind of cool, the panelists that we have here, because, it's like, David, you're running your own shop now. You're a CEO. I'm a CEO. And then Maureen. And then we have a little bit of everything, right? Some independent artists as well. Also, I just want to mention to anybody that would like to ask a question, or ask a typed question, or if you want to ask a audio, using your mic kind of question, you could raise your hand if you want the mic and to ask a question, or you can type it into our Q&A. Great. So anybody else want to add about exercise?
Well, what can I say? I'll say something super quick about exercising is that I find it extreme because of the work, I find it extremely difficult to find the motivation. So I have to find tricks. I have to trick myself, I have to find goals so that my basic brain, who doesn't want to do it, has to do it because it's forced into doing it. So, and I think because if I just try to follow what I want to do, I will rarely exercise. But if I find little tricks to force me to do it, I can trick myself simply as simple as saying, oh, you can have that only if you go running first, or if you go walking, just walking, and also the other thing is, I'm talking about walking, is that walking to me is always after a break, after I get too exhausted or burned out or anything, and I haven't exercised in a while, walking is always my way back into exercising. And walking is super safe, as long as you don't you're not in the big city with an iPhone. But if you can walk pretty much anywhere, and so for me, that's always the way into getting back to exercising. So that's the tip I have on my side.
I think I need to add one thing to what David was saying. This is actually, it's very interesting because it's actually very connected to these new scientific researchers that are connected to the act of doing something that you don't want to do. And there's a lot of psychologists and people that found out that if you actually link something that you perceive as negative with something positive, you end up being able to just do that effort, or in case of exercise. So there's always a bit of linking. When you link positive and negative, you are able to actually go into new routines by just like transforming the event into something you like by pairing. And it's something that is just done more and more.
Love it.
Yeah, similar experience with Iris. I started doing Ring Fit Adventure on Switch during the pandemic. And it's totally the same thing where it's a game, and I used to hate exercising, and being able to just enjoy it as a game. And it does a lot of different workouts, but instead of just working out, not only you're like going through a adventure and fighting monsters, but also you can see the track of your progression. So it really motivated me. So I thought that was a great experience for me.
Great. Also, Aisha has raised her hand, so I want to invite Aisha to ask a question.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep.
It's very nice to see everyone. I'm not sure if you remember me, Mr. Bobby, but we met in Dubai for the Dubai workshop. I talked to you. Yeah, I remember telling you about that I'm a type 1 diabetic and how I got my second chance in life, after having a very high sugar level and almost being comatose. God gave me a second chance, and I'm using that second chance to move forward with whatever obstacle I can overcome.
Oh, wow. Thank you for, keeping in touch and coming on to this.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. And
I was there too. I was there too. That was awesome.
I remember you, Sir David. I remember your seminar. I remember your web workshop. It was great. I had a lot of fun actually, and I still remember it was a dream come true. Honestly, it was a dream come true. Those were so many years ago. But despite what everyone said at the workshop, I really took it to heart, and I focused on pursuing my art as a career. And I recently started freelancing, also because COVID became really, really difficult, especially in Pakistan, because there were so many high rising cases, and one with my mental health and my condition, trying to keep, everything stable with myself and along with my family. But despite all that, I managed to, even though I sometimes keep my emotions bottled up, I managed to, talk with a few members of my family who actually understand the concept of mental health, to the point where now, after I pursued freelance illustration, and now Wednesday I have an interview with a publishing house, and they want to hire me to become a book illustrator.
Oh, great. Well, is that related to the question that you have?
No, sorry. That was a little self introduction. Yes, when you start talking about exercise, and what Miss Iris was saying, that having someone to coach you through the process of exercising. I myself am not a big fan of exercise, but I have a younger sister who is very, very much into exercise, and she drags me out, and she's always like, I'm going to set a time in a day, and we're going to go on our bikes, and we're going to go biking around the neighborhood, or we're going to, walk around the neighborhood, because my neighborhood is safe. But overall, she's obsessed with her pedometer, and she's got me one as well. So she's like, we're going to track our steps, and we're going to, get healthy and get back on track and everything else. So that's what it is for me. And sometimes if I don't have the time to exercise, my mother and I, we go out, we do some grocery shopping, do some heavy lifting, and one way or another, I get my daily dose of serotonin and whatnot.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for sharing. I guess I'll put you back into the audience. And great, we could go on to another question here. This one comes from one of the attendees. Anonymous asks, therapy, what to expect from it and how to ensure it's not wasted time and money?
Good,
Well,
David.
I'll jump on that because every time we had one of those discussions, I always say that I'm a huge proponent of psychotherapy. I've been in therapy for 8 years now. I go twice a week. And to me, that's my lifeline. If I didn't, I don't think I'll be able to go through the hard stuff I go through at work, the hard stuff I go through family. But I would also say that it's a cautionary tale as well. You really want to select the therapist you're going with. Everybody's different and everybody's problems are different. A lot of problems can come from childhood, other problems can come from trauma that comes later in life and things like that. But I would say that, and I said that last time, I'll repeat it again, is that I think that choosing a therapist is as serious as choosing a brain surgeon. So I would really consider asking around to people, asking around professional, your doctor. Make sure that nowadays, I know that in the US, you have ways of seeing the biography of your therapist in America, when you choose your healthcare provider. I would really carefully read through it, meet with them once. Usually the first meeting is free. I would really select that person. You can't always choose your family, they say, but you can definitely choose your therapist. I would really ask people to choose very carefully and wisely. So I would say that the selection process is very important.
I would like to add to that. I think choosing a therapist, also the first step to get to a therapist is also very important. I think you have to be really open to it. And I think you need to allow yourself to have that relationship with this person, even though they're a stranger. You just have to be kind of honest and open about it. Otherwise, it just wouldn't work because it's also a relationship. And I also like to think of therapist like a personal trainer for your mental health than a doctor. Don't think that you're going there because you have a problem. You're going there is because you want better health. It's not like you have a problem. It's just that you want to feel happier. I think people need to be open to having that idea that you are here for making yourself a happier person.
And I fully agree with what you just said. And I would add to that even more is that realize that going to therapy is hard work, especially at the beginning. I know that for me, there was a lot of stuff that had to be unearthed. And the first 2 years, I would say, were very hard work, very emotional work. So don't go there as well like you're going on vacation, because it's not at all a vacation. It's a lot of hard work, but it's necessary work. And in the end, for me, it was multifold. I wanted to become a better artist. I wanted to become a better person. And I knew that there were blocks in my life that were stopping me from doing so. And the only way you remove those blocks is by going back in history in your life, unearthing all this, breaking down all those walls, and rebuild clean again.
David, it's funny because for me, I had the opposite experience. I've had so many therapists, but I found that lots of therapists were trying to help me go into the past and try to fix what was wrong. But that was really hard for me to do. I wanted the action items about how I'm like, okay, yeah, I know that past caused this, but what do I do about it? And for me, a life coach actually worked better for me personally. I have this amazing life coach. Her name is Laverne McKinnon. She used to be the head of Charlize Theron's production company. She only sees clients, by the way, patients who are in the creative industries. But she's like, I don't care. I understand the past, but we're not going to delve in that. We're going to delve into what to do about it. And I found that a lot better for me personally. But it's just like you said, it depends on the therapist and what works best for you. But for me, I found myself beating myself up a lot. Why am I not doing this right? And then getting mad at myself for beating myself up. And her thing is more about accepting all your faults and the way you are, rather than even trying to figure out what's wrong and fixing it. It's just like accepting that, yeah, this thing might not be great about you, but because of that, this other thing is great. And look, you're able to deal with it. So life coach is just another way to go. There's many different types of mental health professionals that I'd also recommend.
I think that what happens is that when you begin to be, you start to be like in discovery mode when it comes to yourself, when it comes to finding ways to just like improve your mental being, your mental state. And when you just trigger this, I was going to say, the thing that matters is that you're going to be in that discovery mode and you're going to try things. And it's great. It's the first step is to actually just wanting to solve things within yourself, like trying new things and just, again, be open to new ideas. On that front, actually, I tried, I had an hypnosis session for the first time, like about a month and a half ago, and it was actually super insightful. I was just, thinking about this because Danielle, you were saying that you were actually now like a hypnosis expert when it comes to this, and it really helped. It's like a full mental door that you open, and it really shows you that therapy is just such a versatile tools. There's multiple ways of solving personal issues, and I think the first initial goal is to just jump into it, which is not always easy. As we see in the chat, there's a lot of you that just are not having the first trigger because it's hard. It's just not easy to just like suddenly say, I'm just going to go and discover why I don't really feel well, why I'm not creating the way I was creating 5 years ago, and things that just make you have all these blocks that are just like frustrating. And when you just like really way down into the rabbit hole, you don't really want to do this. So finding a way to open the right door on therapies that may or may not be useful to you, but at the same time, it's good to give it a try. You have to jump and to open all these doors. Imagine 15 doors in front of you while you open them one at a time. And there might be 50 doors or 200.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Does anyone here have a suggestion for people how to find a therapist that might work for them, be it a life coach or be it a psychiatrist or a psychologist, or who? I think for many people, it's very daunting to actually, where to start finding a therapist. And even for some people, they're not as readily available. For instance, I would love to talk with somebody who understands the job I'm doing. Because when I talk with people, they're like, oh, you have to cut out stress. And it's like, stress is part of my job. That's never gonna not happen. When you're working on a production and it's all of a sudden things have to change, you have a certain amount of time and you have to do it. So a lot of therapists do not really understand the industry we're working in. So that's a problem I've encountered, and I'm sure that a lot of people have as well. And especially in the Netherlands, I don't know of any therapist that's known with these issues.
I used the online services called BetterHelp. I feel like that's probably a little easier or a little more accessible for people that's, staying at home, or you need someone remotely. And I just chatted with my therapist. I did come across some work-related scenarios that I was explaining to her, but I don't think that really mattered too much. I think the root is just the stress, and that's understandable between all of us. And I think it's not like a occupation related, like you don't have to go into so much about your actual job, but it's mainly the mental issues that you have that they can understand. And I think they understand you really well generally. So I would say just try someone. And
I haven't found the right ones then.
Yeah, there's a lot of options on the BetterHelp and Psychology Today. So those two websites are generally somewhere good to begin with, I would say.
Yeah. So I'm cheating because my wife is a therapist herself. So I know that if I need to find someone for friends, I ask her, but she uses actually Psychology Today when she looks for other people. So I know that Psychology Today is the key way, but I think it's in the US. I don't think it. I don't know. I mean, but it's something to look into. But there may be something similar in Netherlands. I'm sure there is something similar in Netherlands. Also, for people to understand the difference between a psychologist, a psychiatrist, and life coach. I mean, these are very different type of systems. Psychiatry is basically for medication. If you need, sometimes when you're doing therapy, you may want medication to help you go through something that you have a lot of trouble with. And that's when you go see a psychiatrist. A psychologist is more a therapist, like using discussion in order to unearth past stuff or present stuff. So these are the different distinctions. But I would say if you have a doctor, if you have a healthcare insurance, or if you have an HR person in your company, usually that's kind of the roads you would use in America, at least, in order to find a therapist.
Fantastic. Maureen, can you also see the questions?
Yes, I can.
Do you want to pick the next question?
Sure.
I just add one thing to
Oh, sure, yes.
everything that was said. Even though like we're talking about how important it is to do therapy and see someone and talk to a person who is a professional, not everybody has that resource, right? So I think like another thing that you can at least start doing to make sure you are taking care of your mental health is journaling. And to me, journaling has been such an important part of that, to just figure out what's going on, what is happening, to process the feelings that I'm having and finding why they're coming up, and then going back to what I wrote like days and weeks before, and like, oh, I was feeling this way in this period of my life. What was happening? What is happening now? And you can kind of help yourself a little bit in that area when you're not, you're open. You can be open. You can be honest, because nobody is going to read it. So you can really, dig very deep and be very honest with yourself, and then go back and read it again and find out what's going on. And because like, to me, I think a lot. My brain is like always overactive and there's a lot of thoughts. So writing really helps organize everything. And it just turns out that it's very therapeutic to me. So that's something you can start doing. And then, when you have the access to a therapist, you already kind of know what to talk about and how it is the experience to actually, externalize your feelings and what you're going through.
Recently, I read that actually journaling things that you are that you have gratitude about also helps you to sleep, helps you to prepare to sleep. I don't know if that's true, but
I think it's different for everyone, the way that you implement that in your life, because there are like millions of like prompts that you can follow, like questions you can answer if you don't know what to write about, or you can just, write whatever is in your mind. There's a lot of ways to approach it. And I find it to be, very helpful.
It's one of these things that I still haven't done. I have a bit of that list where I checked many boxes these last 3 years. I started like 8 months prior to the pandemic. So on this one, I had a bit of a premonition, I guess. But it's one thing that I still haven't done is journaling and starting writing. And I really want to give it a try. But everything else, I did my best from meditation to be in a better place when it comes to sports, endurance sport, where I got really addicted to endurance sports to the point where I train close to every day. I go run like, close to every day, like at least five times a week. But it's true that when it comes to writing, it's a bit of that mental block that makes me probably believe that what I write is just like not something I would want to show. So it's a bit like revealing yourself a bit too much, I guess. And that's why it's important to do it. But it's great. It's a great reminder that I would really want to jump into, writing something, because it's not for other people, it's for yourself. And a bit of that mental thing needs to happen, so definitely.
I had a question about your running, and also when people are saying doing a lot of exercise. There's a question here about meditation. And I feel like running and exercise is a form of meditation, as is painting and doing art, though writing is, I would say, less meditative and more active. Do you guys meditate, and how has it influenced the quality of your art practice?
I tried it. It's not for me. It doesn't work for me. I'm so not able to switch off. But what works for me is going on a walk with a podcast on folklore, or just simple music, like nature sounds, just listening to water or leaves rustling in the wind. That kind of sounds bring me into that state of mind where I'm calmer. But when I'm actively doing that, I've got an app called Calm. People really recommended it to me, and I'm sure it works for many people. It doesn't really for me, and I get very antsy from it. But I think there's a meditation in different ways, and my meditation is doing sculpture. I love just pushing clay around, and I'm not doing that for anybody else but for myself, and I'm creating something that I really enjoy. And it can take a year, it can take 2 years. I don't mind. It's just being present and not being busy with having to perform for anybody else. So it's like writing for myself, but I'm just playing with clay. So that's
I'm exactly like Iris. I mean, I cannot switch my brain off. It's impossible. I've tried meditation. I've tried many other things. It's a tap that's on that cannot be turned off. And the only way that I can turn it off is podcasts. It's nature sounds and running. I'm walking. Yeah.
That is a kind of meditation, isn't it? Like, it's moving meditation, but still meditation, because you're still getting like the benefits of it, even if you're not like in the traditional pose of meditation. You're still getting the beneficial like the relaxation and like zoning out of the stress of the everyday life and everything. And they're the monks, like they do those mandalas with sand. They're not sitting still, but that is a kind of meditation, like the mandala and all. It's a ritual and it's movement, but it's still meditation and it's still getting the benefits. So it's always valid.
I think it's another type of benefits. I'm just going to put a bit of a note that is not to go against anything that has been said, because everything you have said is fully valid, which is it is very difficult. And there are other ways to meditate, which is like 1,000,000,000% true. The meditation, when it comes to freeing your mind, is still something that is insanely challenging, like David and Iris, you just said. The thing, though, that is interesting, and the controversy and the complexity of meditation, though, is that it is about disconnecting. It is, it's interesting because we're all like this. This discussion with my wife the other day, where I tried to have her go into meditation, and the first thing she tells me, like, Iris, that a bit like what you were saying, which is, well, there's no way I can go into meditation because my brain is too busy. And it's specifically for the people that have a very, very busy brain that meditation can be so vital and can be helpful. That doesn't mean it's easy, and it's true. It is close to impossible sometimes, but it is a fact that it is for all of us that are so eager to have our brain shown ideas that meditation can be vital in a way. That being said, again, it is super challenging, but what they have discovered, through many years of studies, where you all remember these studies where they actually just like took monks and studied their brains through MRIs to see exactly what happens during meditation, is that we know now that you can actually have a night's sleep, and it will just be very different than the fact of being able to free your mind and to actually just practice mindfulness and to actually be able to actually let the ideas pass, and just like not just like be ultra connected to all these ideas that you're actually going to have in your brain. So what I mean by this is that there is a very specific act of meditation that actually helps the brain in many ways, and to be and with a lot of advantages. And the only way to actually do that is to actually meditate, or being able to just do like what these monks can do, which is freeing your mind fully to the point where ideas don't really just touch you. You are able to just like push them away. That being said, I have such a hard time, and I've been meditating since 2007, where I started, I was living in Dallas. I was not in a good place. You were in the chat, there were quite a few people that were saying, what do you do when you are in a depressed mode? Well, I don't think I'm going to be wrong saying that all of us artists have a tendency to sometimes fall into bad habits and into small depressed states, or sometimes heavy depressed states that are actually having us just be in a bad place. And I remember I started overworking, and then I had health issues, and I had tornadoes just came in my life, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is terrible. And living with a sign in my ear, all these things made me wanting to investigate and just find ways. So I actually went into a Buddhist temple that was a Theravada temple connected to the Thailand community. And I started eating with the monks every Sunday. And I started actually meditating with them. And it just helped me tremendously. And it was like phenomenal. And another thing about, finding ways of having new therapies. And it just helped me, all this to say, meditation it's a very complicated animal. There are many other ways, but I will still say that the real meditation, that's not the word I want to say, but the way to actually disconnect the brain through like the traditional meditation method is one thing that can help tremendously. And again, I'm like you guys. What I mean is that I sometimes, through the years, have been able to meditate where I could free my mind, where now I can indeed, this year specifically, I've been able now to go to an hour and a half of meditation without just like suddenly looking at my watch. You go into a bit of another space-time, but it is very complex, and I still struggle like all of us when it comes to meditation. It is just not an easy tool, definitely not.
I always found
I think it's a lot of practice. Sorry. I think it's just one thing that I remembered. It's a lot of practice to actually sit still and meditate, and, don't have the urge to check your phone and stuff like that. And it's like people when it's about yoga, like I can't do yoga because I'm not flexible, but that's exactly the reason you should do yoga, because you're not flexible. That's where you go to get flexible and strong and stuff like that. So meditation would be the same thing. Like I can't switch my brain off, but that's exactly the reason you should try and develop that, because it is practice.
I feel like because of the time that we're living in, it makes it even harder to be able to sit down and meditate, because also, never before have we had so many options to kind of occupy our attention. Like our brains are always active, and like I find it a blessing to still remember how it's like without the internet, and how many bored kind of moments that I have that were long. Like you're just bored, you got nothing else to do. TV, it's all, colored bars. If you're old enough at a certain time, there's nothing to watch. And then ideas come, or, like great things come of that. from just being bored. So nowadays I look for those bored moments where I could be bored, you know, like I'm waiting for somebody. Instead of grabbing my phone, let's just be bored and just stare. And just by doing that, it's like, it's real nice. It's not like serious meditation, but you know, if you do this long enough, you'll feel like stuff is slowly draining out of your head to allow it to be more open for new things.
Fully agree.
Another way to do this is to just delete all the apps from your phone. That's what I do.
Exactly where I was going.
Yeah,
That's exactly where I was going.
When I have a holiday or a vacation, I try to book it somewhere really remote without any television, without anything. And then, you know, I delete all the apps and I'm like switching off. And the first day is like, oh, you feel antsy because you're not checking. But the second day it's easier. The third day it's like, what? And you're not missing anything. You're not missing anything. Exactly. Because the only thing you're doing is just doom scrolling. It's just, you know, excuse my language, bullshit. It's just not, it's toxic. So
same thing. I was gonna say it was the same experience, sorry David, but same thing where like 6 months or 8 months or a year ago, I forgot exactly when, you know, on my iPhone, on my iPad, I had all these small social games that I was playing all the time in a very addicting way. And when I was going to, you know, at the end of the day, sometimes I would just like take my my iPad in my bed and just do that stuff. And suddenly I was like, okay, I'm done with all that stuff. I need to find a way to read more. I was already reading more, but I needed more time for a bit more serious stuff. Not saying that games are not serious. I've been working into games for like 24 years, so it would be dumb saying this, but it's true that I was losing time on that stuff. I removed everything in exactly what you said. I removed all these damn small apps and stuff. And my iPad and iPhone became empty. I did not miss any of it. In a snap, in a day, I was reading more and not even missing any of that stuff.
No. Or forget your phone. Go for a walk without your phone. And everybody's always taking pictures of everything and they're never looking at those pictures ever again. So why take the picture? So just enjoy a moment of a sunset and not take a picture, but look at it and really absorb it. I think that's maybe part of meditation. Just be in that moment right there. Just look and just enjoy and listen to the sounds, smell everything. Just, you know, switch off. And
to go in that, to go in that direction when it comes to the social media apps and apps in general, is that your attention, your time is money for those apps. They are creating algorithms so that you get stuck to them. So the best way to fight against algorithms, we're humans. We can't fight against addiction. It's very hard. So the best way is to just remove them. And the found freedom that Nicholas is talking about is very clear. The same happened to me. I think we did it probably around the same time, you know, we were talking about it. But anyway.
I actually want to talk about that specific topic because there's a question that said, I feel like I'm being judged all the time when I post my art on social media. Likes and followers are giving me anxiety, and I feel like I'm worth less if my posts do not perform. Can you give me your insights on views on social media, how to deal with the feelings like you have no self-worth? And just to make it also pandemic related, I think this is something that all artists, a lot of people using social media deal with. But have you seen that exacerbated during the pandemic? What do you guys do to keep your self-worth intact from caring about what other people think?
I also want to know that because I have the same question. I don't know how to answer that.
I want to say one thing is that, first of all, whether you're a beginner artist in the industry or like a guy that's like me, I mean, I'm 48, you will always have those insecurities. So just so you know, so you don't think that as you get older, it gets better. You will always carry insecurities as an artist. Not all artists are like that, but I am one of them. And I carry those insecurities, and I'm learning how to deal with them as I go through life, and having the therapist, of course, helps. But the two things I've noticed is that the two things that made my life better just over the last 6 months And 6 months ago, I was in a dark place, and it happens through waves, and that's just my life, I guess. But what made a huge difference is the apps that we talked about, remove them. And the other thing I did is see friends in real life, meaning, and it's very hard because when you have family, you have kids, you have to take care of them, you have to put them in bed, feed them, all that stuff. But you can find time, you force yourself to go at least once a week for 2 hours with a friend, have a coffee. I mean, that's what I've done. And to me, it made a huge difference. At least that was my solution. No apps, find real people.
I would have loved to do that, find real people, but we were in lockdown. We weren't allowed to go anywhere. We weren't allowed to meet up with people, which made it very difficult. And a lot of my friends are abroad. So, for 2 years, I haven't seen my best friends. And Zoom calls are awesome. I mean, that's great. That's what we tried. But it's still difficult. It's still you're in your studio. So I think artists are equipped to be on their own. We can deal with this. This is what we do. We sit in our studio and we create and do that. So it's like nothing changed for me, but I missed my trips to Paris. I missed my trips to London. I missed museums. I so miss museums. And to circle back to the question about the numbers and the self-worth, 5 years ago, I was so, 5 or 6 years ago, I think, I was so depressed about everything. Nothing was working. I didn't have any clients. Nothing was working. And I was there focusing on those likes, but nothing was working. So I just, I started hating doing art. And that was the moment I decided, like, for who am I creating art? Why am I doing this? And I went back to why I wanted to do art in the first place. And it wasn't to please anybody else but myself. So that's my most important thing, is create art that you want to create and you want to see in the world, and not try to cater to a potential client, because there's always somebody better than you are. There's thousands better than us. So there's no way you're going to be the best. There's no way you're going to please everyone. So better to, please yourself. Be happy with what you do, and what you post is what you believe in. And whatever everybody else says doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. And it's easy to say, but it's such a change of thinking about it, that mental, what you think about your thoughts, how you think about your art is so important for your self-worth.
Can I just add a little something here? Like this whole question, it really reminds me of like when I was a kid, loved studying animals, wanted to see what a whale looked like without barnacles. There are none. There are no giant whales that you can find without barnacles. If you get big enough, you will get some barnacles as well on your comments. You know what I mean? So it's an inevitability. But then also there was a show I recommended to Maureen, Ted Lasso. That really helped me to get through a lot of stuff, because he is just the most positive kind of person. And when people call him a wanker, he's like, okay, well, I'll try better next time. Thank you, sir. And it's just like, I tried to embody that and there was a couple of times where somebody left a bad comment, and I painted a bald character of Robert Pattinson, and then somebody was like, how come you're always bald people are the villains? I'm like, what? Like even something like that, I get some whatever bad comment, but in the end I was just like, sorry, I'll try better next time, and just went the Ted Lasso route. And then the person was like, oh, sorry, I'm totally just joking. I didn't realize my sarcasm didn't come off properly.
By the way, on the positive side of Ted Lasso, I was doing research ahead of this to make sure I had questions. And one of the articles on mental health in The Atlantic was about how they were taking surveys of people's depression and happiness over time throughout the pandemic. Now it's basically the same as pre-pandemic. Like it went, people were super depressed and had anxiety, but people bounced back. And it shows that people are actually more resilient than they think. And if you can find ways to get through things and how, but there's also research that shows that you tend to have a baseline of happiness the way you are. And no matter how many wonderful things or how many bad things happen to you, you tend to always level out at that. So in general, we should just try to raise our baseline because then we'll always like go back to that, right? They had that study that said people who won the lottery versus people who went paraplegic, they still went back to the same happiness that they were before after a certain amount of time. But it's just interesting. And I think also a positive thing that we can try to, that we are much more resilient than we expect. Hey, I have a question, guys. Are any of you guys parents?
Oh, yeah.
I'm curious because the research also showed that a lot of parents especially experience more difficulty than usual because of the pandemic. And I'm wondering how you guys are dealing with mental health with being parents and having to juggle all the home stuff as well.
Well, I'm going to go super fast on this, but I was going to say it was a bit hard in the past, but I have the luck of having mostly now a 21 and an 18-year-old. So and I have a 12-year-old. So the 12-year-old we had struggled because obviously the whole school thing, and so we actually had her homeschooled now, and and the pandemic has changed a lot of our views when it comes to school. When it comes to education, my wife went into like many other models, and so it allowed us to just be a bit more safe. But it's true that having an 18 and a 21-year-old is a bit easier when it comes to parenting because there's less to do. Even though the problem is, you still have to just tell them to just like do stuff in the house and just take care of their laundry. So this is how it goes. We're not out of the woods yet, but it's definitely been a bit of a challenge. I don't think I have any good advice on this one. I think it's always been a bit complicated, but it's true that my wife has been very helping when I'm very dedicated to my art. It is true that I've been like not escaping my duties, but it's the fact that she's been doing a lot on that front.
David, did you want to mention something as well?
No, I mean, yeah, it sucked being a parent during pandemic. Yes, when you have kids, I mean, my girls are 5 and 7. It was pretty brutal because we're facing at the same time the fact that all movie production stopped, like from one day to the other, and then on top of that, school stopped from one day to the other. So I had my girls at home, and I became the teacher for 2-3 months. You know, I've never taught school to anybody in my life. So these were really tough months. But I think what happened through that is that I think it solidified our family, it solidified my relationship with my wife. It pushed me in a position into which I'm not usually, you know, which is taking care of the house, you know, which was like all as well very strengthening for everybody. It made me appreciate a lot of things more probably. But I would say that for parents, I mean, I think depending on where you live as well, it may be more or less difficult. We are lucky that we have a house that's big enough that I could put like a mini classroom in our house, you know, so there were advantages. And we moved out of Los Angeles a few years before the pandemic, which I think was our saving grace as parents, because we have trees outside, you know, we live in, like far from any big city. So we have trees outside. And if it wasn't for that, I think it would have been very, very, very hard. So I would say that there was a lot of luck into how well things turned out for us.
I need to add that we've communicated a lot with David, and seeing, I from the outside, having seen David and Amy, you guys do this, was probably like you were saying, a very much life-saving process when it comes to how you were in such a busy city where you were drowning into just like, so it was like having your brain explode. And I remember that the whole process that you guys have done was phenomenal. You know, I'm just saying this as the exterior eye, where I was like, wow, yeah, what you guys have done here was one of the best steps ever. That's a sure fact.
Yeah, moving out of Los Angeles was entirely done for mental health for all of us, our daughters and ourselves, for sure. Yeah.
Maureen, how about you answer your own question as well? Because, you know, you have a lot to deal with, a lot of employees to deal with, running a studio and everything. What has helped you parent a little bit easier, hopefully?
Well, the pandemic has been awesome, honestly, for parenting for me, because especially if you're a CEO and you have your own company, you get to choose your own hours, right? And I remember with the first baby, like needing to breastfeed, and when I couldn't because I was at work and I had to travel all the time. But now that I'm home, I just pop up and breastfeed the little baby, and I spend a lot more time with her than I would have otherwise. But also finding ways to bring art into my life. For example, my daughter's in preschool, the eldest, and they have a little mailbox where you can write them letters. And I used to have this time long time ago where I would make sure to draw every day, because I just felt that that would help me be more creative on the business side, and it was my meditation. But now what I do is I draw pictures for her and give it to her as mail to her mailbox at preschool. So she's now the subject of that, and she can help inspire me. So I try to find ways to do that, or for art, also always encouraging her to do art projects, but also making sure to block off time, right? Like I've told my assistant specifically, from these hours are the times that I have to like breastfeed and deal with kids as food. And for all the employees, we did a mandatory from like 1 to 2, or like 12:30 to 1:30, no meeting time, because we know that the parents have to do lunch for their kids and whatnot, and trying to be flexible with the schedules for each person.
That's a great one. Like the last one, I think everybody can apply that. You know, like a lot of times we feel like we don't have enough time until we have no other choice, right? Maybe something happens in your life or whatever, where now you got to take care of somebody, and then you have no choice, but you always make it work, right? So if you're not in that situation, now's a great time to just block off some time and go, you have no choice. There's something powerful about when you are in a mental state of, I have no choice. I need to run. I have no choice. I need to talk to my therapist. That's the appointment. There's no going back, you know, those kind of things, right?
Another great one is, I'm like pre-diabetic, so I had no choice. I have to exercise. And I found that taking all my meetings while walking, I know sometimes you want to be in Zoom and Face, but that is great because of what you guys are saying about the meditative aspect of walking. It's just scientific, because when you walk and you're using, or even sculpting, like you're saying earlier, when you're using both sides of your brain, it activates both the animal side of the brain as well as the like prefrontal cortex man thing. It makes it so that you can be more, activate both, because when we are stressed and through anxiety, we're thinking all through our like prefrontal cortex. We're too much in our minds. So walking really helps. But that also makes it so that I can think of more creative ideas. And also, if somebody's saying something to me on the phone that's going to really amp me up and piss me off, the fact that I'm walking calms me down too. So I can think much more clearly. And last thing, the research actually shows, they did a study in Japan that if you are in the forest more, it's called forest bathing, you actually live longer, because the trees actually release chemicals that are good for your health and make you live longer. It's specifically the cypress tree, but I think all trees in general are good. So it's proven we should all do that. And super hot showers.
It's probably the color green. That's the thing. That's the secret.
That's why Tian looks so young. You know, she's just working in the forest there.
Yeah, jungle here, indoor jungle. And outside we have cedar trees here in Seattle. So I got both.
So Iris, every time you just shake your head, you live longer. That's what you're saying.
Yeah.
You see,
you should try it, Spot.
I just wanted to add something about the fact of becoming accountable towards yourself. when it comes to any type of new schedule, new efforts that you want to be doing. Like what you were saying, Bobby, is true. It's the fact of just becoming accountable towards yourself, which is literally you put yourself in a situation where, because you have put like these stakes in the ground when it comes to running every day or drawing every day. But it's interesting sometimes, not always easy for drawing, but for running, for example, if you have a coach or a friend that can actually just like coach you, or I have a person I know who's a friend. He's actually he's been an ultra runner for many years, and he helps me and he's my official coach. Where I also pay him for this. What I mean is that in the same way as you pay for a therapist because it is part of a process, because you need to become accountable to a routine. And I'm not saying the paying thing is just vital, but it's still things that it is important into a process like that. And in the same way, when you become accountable towards maybe also a tier person, like another person, you put yourself in a bit of an obligatory, mandatory situation where you need to respect your own process, your own schedule, and the things you have said. And it's not only for the person that you become accountable to, but for yourself. And that's vital because it allows you to just like be in a situation where no matter what, you have to do it. And it has to do with your personal respect of rules, and it's vital doing this. As a result, when I go running, I never ever question the fact that I'm going to go running. And I'm always joking with my wife on this because my wife really followed me into that effort, and she's been running a lot. She's a bit less dedicated every time she go running. So every time we go and it's raining like crazy outside and it's like cold and all that stuff, and I don't care because I go no matter what. And every time that happens, she's going to be like, oh, we got to go running. I'm like, yeah, we have to go running because it's fun. And because I'm just like, I just shaped up my brain to see running as something interesting and all that stuff. And every time she's like, oh, okay. And I tell her straight away, but hey, you don't have to go if you don't want to. It became a catchphrase every time. It's like, if you don't want to go, you don't have to. And it just infuriates the crap out of her. And every time she's like, no, I'm going to go with you. And so every time she goes with me, but it became a thing where she became accountable to herself too. So there's a lot of tricky ways to just like go into that specific effort. It's easier for an endurance sport, but I bet there's many ways to do it through reading, because like I was telling Bobby, we discussed about it several times, where reading became a thing. I went literally from reading like 2 books a year to reading 25 books a year now. And these last 2 years, I've read like maybe 50 books because, again, I dedicated time to it and it just helps a lot. One thing I wanted to say, I just became addicted to that thing for these last 3 years, is the fact of having always this on my desk, which is a regular time timer where when it comes to tasks and when it comes to the act of just not losing time, this helped me so much. And it's not about having the same thing on your watch or on the computer sometimes where it's just going to be lost into sub windows or whatever. It's just the fact of actually having a physical timer on the side of your desk that allows you to just like dedicate sometimes 30 minutes to a thing, and it just helps a lot. That's another subject, but I'm always having my time timer on the side, and it just saves my butt when it comes to planning my day.
I got one of these. It's voice activated. I'll just save whatever timer I need.
Yeah, I also have a lot of plants, and they force me to have that dedicated time to water them. And I find watering them is super therapeutic because, you're just there with your plants and you're not thinking about anything else because you have to focus on watering because otherwise your water is going to spill everywhere, right? And that gives me like a half an hour of really the most therapeutic thing ever. So I think it really helped. And when I had my therapy sessions with my therapist, she also mentioned something about if you're touching the soil, there's something about the chemicals of the soil between your fingers it actually makes us happy. So there's something to gardening that I would definitely recommend.
Yeah, I've heard like something about having bare feet on ground, on like grass or soil. There's something special about that. I don't know. But
Yeah, just touching nature, I guess, just really
hug a
helps
tree
calm you down.
if it's not too
Yeah,
cold.
hug a tree. Yeah.
I think to go what you both are saying is that, and what everybody's saying, I think that in the way to get out of like a funk really is to go back into your body, because being kind of a more depressive mode is more internal and very mental and very like self-discussions and things like that. And when you go back into your body, you rebalance yourself in some ways, whether it's through meditation or through, I almost say medication, but it's through meditation or running or doing anything physical gets you out of always just focusing on your mind, probably.
You know, I have a kind of like an important story that has really helped me throughout this whole entire pandemic. And that's from my grandmother. You know, she's 103 right now. And so when she was born, this was during the first pandemic after World War I, right? It was called the Spanish flu back then, even though it probably never came from Spain. And then having to live through that, and then going into World War II in her 20s. And then after that, probably the worst thing happened. It was, Japan occupied Taiwan and was giving it back to China now. And so China tells the people, there's all these opportunities in Taiwan, go and move there and, bright new futures. And so she went, and then afterwards, then China became communist and closed the borders, all communication, not even letters, back to her family, back to her parents, back to her siblings, all of a sudden cut for 50 years, right? No contact. And, now it's in her second pandemic that she's faced. And she was like, this pandemic is nothing when you really think about it. You can still talk to your family, your friends. You can still see people, actually. It's not just a letter, right? And if you really think about the things that we take for granted and are truly grateful for, then we can see that space in between what's happening to us and the reaction that we're going to give. Are we going to be depressed? Are we going to, and try to see that space, because that space is where you can decide how you want to focus your attention or how you want to be. That to me, it was like, yeah, shoot, I can talk with my friends. I can see my friends even, it's nothing like what she went through. So that I constantly think about that.
And that's good to remind yourself of that there's so many options and possibilities nowadays, but it's also I do think it's also important to validate that what people are feeling now is it is what they're going through. They are struggling. There are people struggling really, really badly. So like my grandparents went through World War II as well, and they had people, they sheltered people, and you can't even imagine how that is for years and years to be silent and hidden away from the Germans. So we're definitely we have luxury in a sense that we have communication. But I do think there's a lot of people dealing with the lack of being able to just go out, touch people, hug people. It's difficult for a lot of people who have never been in a situation where there were restrictions on their movements. And I think that's also important to, that we shouldn't complain, but yet our complaints are valid, if that makes any sense. But it's okay to feel depressed, because it's difficult. There are moments that are difficult, but it's also, you need to try and see the other side as well, and listen to stories like you're telling about your grandmother. It's very important to put things in perspective and to be able to get out of your head and see things differently and find a balance again. And how can I find the fun again in certain things?
Really is perspective holds a lot of the key to it.
Yeah.
Right. Like,
yeah,
I read this billionaire went from like $14 billion to being worth $6 billion. So he killed himself. It's like, it's all perspective, isn't it?
yeah.
But that's totally human nature though, right? They show that like you could be super rich, but you live in a super rich neighborhood where the people have slightly more than you, then you're unhappy. That's so much of humanity. We judge ourselves and our happiness based off of exactly who's around us. So like we should move to like, I don't know. They're starting
A cabin in the woods surrounded by trees.
Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah. Trees make everything better.
I remember early in the pandemic, when people were moving to remote work, they're saying like, oh no, productivity is going to get worse. But then they found that productivity wasn't necessarily worse. And then people instead, many artists were talking about burnout. And we had quite a few questions in the Q&A about whether or not you guys have experienced burnout during the pandemic or know people who have, and how did you deal with that?
I'd love to give a plug to Iris's course on Schoolism, because that's what I did. My issue, I don't know if anybody else has experienced this, but especially if you're doing art for yourself, it's like, is this idea even worth my time to pursue? And every time I drew something, I was like, it's another one of those things. I feel like I've done this like 20 other times. And so to get out of it, I took a course. I took Iris's course on Schoolism. And there I can just paint along with her and see her paint. And so what was I going to paint? Well, that's already taken care of. I'm painting one of Iris's assignments. And then that, I feel like perhaps that also gave me kind of like a meditative kind of experience of just painting away, not thinking about, is this even worth painting? That kind
Taking away the expectations you have of yourself, I think. It's like taking away expectations of the end result of what it has to be is so important. But just be, in the moment of creating. That's just the painting, the exercise of painting, creating, and whatever happens, it doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be perfect because nobody has to see it. So getting rid of expectations is very important.
But does anybody have any kind of things to kind of share about when you finish something, you post it, and having that anxiety or pressure of getting comments, getting likes? Does anybody deal with that?
I try to put it away as soon as I post it. I just throw it somewhere and I leave the room. So that I don't go to like constantly check, because that will create a lot of anxiety, right? I just throw it away somewhere. And I haven't updated my social media for a long time, which is probably bad for a freelance perspective, but because I'm full-time employed, so I can afford to not care about that. But yeah, that's just my kind of thing that I do. I just put it somewhere away so that I don't check.
I usually post at really late night in the evening for me. So when I've posted it, I go to bed and I forget about it until the next day. And I check. I don't, I'm not even too bothered. It's fun that people like it. But again, I made it and it was all about making it.
I think it's maybe the fact of getting older, but when I post something, sometimes I forget I posted it. So I was like, oh my gosh, I haven't checked that thing for two days that I posted. I'm like, oh my gosh, oh, I posted that thing. Oh, there's a lot of comments and I don't respond to people. I must be, and what makes me feel bad is that when I post stuff and then I'm not always following up, and I feel a bit bad because sometimes I'm just going to go back to Twitter and say, yeah, now people have taken the effort to respond to my art and stuff. So I'm going to go and I'm going to reply to them and give them answers to this and that. And sometimes I totally forget, and I always feel bad. I'm always like, people must think I'm just like a lousy bear in my cave and that I don't give a crap about just giving feedback, which is not the case. It's just that I literally genuinely forget about the fact I posted that in the first place, and my brain just went elsewhere, and it's just not easy to just like be really serious and process oriented when it comes to social media. And maybe it's a good thing. I don't know. It's just that my brain does just not compute with the fact of just being able to be insanely dedicated to that. I just lose. It's not a question of losing interest. It's just that, again, maybe it's one of these things of just getting older. I just forget.
That's actually good, because if you post and you keep checking, like, oh, this person liked it. Oh, now this other person liked it too. It's awful. It's gonna take your whole day, and you're gonna feel like crap.
Yeah.
Because you have that expectation, and you're like waiting for people to come and comment and like, and if they don't come, then what does that mean, right?
I think it's very connected to, there's a lot of research on procrastination, and you guys must all have seen these articles saying procrastination is just not a thing. What is a thing is that you protect yourself at just not going back into, at just not responding on time or just giving a task on time, because it's a brain and mental trigger for you to protect yourself in front of a specific deadline. And so people say procrastination is just it's just not a thing. It's a protection mechanism, which is great in that case, because I'm the ultimate procrastinator for everything all the time. So I guess that I'm just protecting myself all the time, which is just perfect. But maybe it's the same thing, I think these mental these mechanisms of protection they're a thing, and maybe for, like you're saying, for the better.
Yeah, I also hide all the likes, the numbers, because I don't want to see them. It's just like it came to a point that I don't want to see it, because it influences how I feel about my work, and influences like I'm not gonna want to post again soon. I'm gonna have to take a second to recover, because if I keep looking at the numbers, I fall into that trap of like, that is validating, and that is not, that is like awful. And I have to completely like disconnect from that. So I don't want to see numbers. I'm just gonna post and forget about it. I try to forget about it. So I do like it, just leave the phone somewhere and then come back later to check, and just I'm not gonna worry about this. But it's hard. It's really hard.
Everything that you're. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No. Yeah, I think I've developed this like mental block of numbers and stuff like that. I just don't see it. I have them up, but I don't register them as being bad or good or whatever. I think that's like Sparth says, a benefit of growing older. It's like, somebody's gonna have an opinion anyway. So it's good that I believe Instagram has this option now to hide the number of likes, which is really good. So whatever helps for you to get that mental health balance, do it. Just do it. If it means deleting those apps, if it means hiding the likes, if it means just posting very close to going to bed and then you're not checking anymore, do that. Do what works for you.
It's like I am in the habit of playing devil's advocate a lot of times. Just in nature, I totally agree with everything that you're saying, but also it's like when you notice how many comments, how many likes, it can help you to improve your art, or improve your art that connects with people more. right? Because a lot of times when you're making the art, you don't realize that the only person that's going to care is you, because the idea is only good to you, right? And having that kind of immediate reaction to your stuff can be very, very powerful, very, very useful to kind of litmus test a lot of your ideas.
Yeah, I
It's
think
the irony of social media, you know. The irony is that we need it. So, but at the same time, it can just be toxic. So that balance is complicated.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Danielle. Go ahead.
No, it's exactly that, because like I think it's a practice to see the numbers and see the comments and see like the feedback and understand what people are feeling towards your art, what you posted, and kind of like having your sense of, you know, worth detached from that, and like not having, you know, not only like bad comments, but like, because it's algorithm, right? And sometimes your post doesn't get the reach that you expect, and then you think that it's because it's not good enough. And so it's hard to, you know, have yourself disconnected from that, and don't let it be like your worth as an artist, and how much your art is worth in that world, that social media world. And yeah, that's I think it's the challenge.
Yeah, not even just social media, right? Like everything that you're saying almost sounds like advice for anybody working in entertainment, where you gotta please a director, art director, right? You gotta love it while you're making it, and then you gotta detach yourself when you submit it.
Yeah, getting rid of the ego.
Yeah. 3 more minutes. How about one last?
Oh, I have one last thing to say, because
sure.
my therapy tool just arrived into my room, so I'm going to show it to you. I think it's vital to actually have therapy tools like this one.
I knew it. Oh, it looks like a stuffed toy. It looks like a Muppet.
So cute.
That's my therapy tool. It's this guy. I mean, I have two, but just to say, if you can allow yourself and have the possibility to have a pet, it's even if it needs to be just like a tiny rabbit or anything, just do it, because it is shown that it is just like you just convey a lot to these animals, and it's one of the best psychological and therapy tools ever when it comes to balance.
Can I say just one thing?
Mm-hmm.
I just want to add, in like related to mental health. We talked about a lot of things that we do that helps us, but there's something else that is nutrition. Like if you're not getting enough nutrients and the vitamins and stuff like that, there's no way your body will be healthy, and there's no way your mind will be healthy. So there's something else to keep an eye on. If you're getting like enough vitamin D, and I'm vitamin D deficient now because I'm staying inside so much, and we need to also be careful with that, because we need to have everything balanced, and nutrition is very important.
That's a great one. Anybody else with any last minute tips? All right, well,
Have fun with it. Have fun. Try and have fun with what you do. And if that means doing something completely different, because I've seen people asking how they get out of block. And I think it's easy to get very, very super focused, highly focused on getting out of the block. But if you try and get out of your mind or out of that head, and find something that you enjoy, it doesn't have to be art. You can go knit, walk, run, swim, take care of your plants. Anything that gives you fun is going to be a health and a saver, lifesaver. Even the cats or dogs or whatever, anything that's not per se art related. You don't have to create art 24/7 or, all the time. You're also a person that is not just an artist.
Actually, like I was just saying, I totally concur with that. The more you do stuff outside, the better of an artist you're going to be.
Yeah.
That's the way it is. Global knowledge and the act of just like learning about the world will make you a better artist than the fact of just being very specific to concept art or to painting specifically and only. Any people saying, oh, I dedicate my life to painting and nothing else, it means nothing. Painting is the world that you translate into your painting. So the more you know about the world, the more you know about knowledge, about education, about reading, about animals, about pets, about plants, and the more you're going to be the best artist.
There's a saying that goes something to the effect of, when you master one thing, you master everything, because you need to kind of master everything to master one thing. Right?
That's awesome.
So endless things to learn, I guess, for all of us. So I just wanted to thank, of course, our wonderful attendees that came to attend this workshop and all your webinar and all the amazing questions. Also want to thank my wonderful co-host, Maureen Fan, CEO of Baobab, and all of our amazing panelists. Thank you guys so much for your time, your thoughts, and your stories.